On today's podcast, we sit down for a conversation with Sean Mulligan, who's the Vice President of Creative and Music Supervision at MNRK Music. It was an interesting conversation in that we talked about the many and varied aspects of the company. They are involved as a record label, they're involved in music distribution, they're involved in music publishing, as well as music supervision and artist management. And I think what made the conversation so interesting is that they don't handle artists in all of those areas. They handle them in different kinds of arenas. So we talk about what they look for when they sign a songwriter or an artist, and how he finds his talent, who his trusted sources are, and what makes MNRK a unique choice for artists, and a lot more. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we're with Sean Mulligan, VP of Creative Music Supervision at the MNRK Music Group, where we discuss the many and varied divisions of the company at MNRK, what they look for when signing a songwriter artist, and what makes the MNRK Music Group a unique choice for you as an artist. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey Insiders, are you looking to take your music career to the next level? Then you need to know about the Music Business Registry. The Music Business Registry is the leading music industry publisher of the most up-to-date contact information for major and independent record label A&R, music publishers, artist managers, music attorneys, music supervisors, and much, much more. The Music Business Registry is the trusted industry standard and source serving the music business community for over 28 years with the most accurate and up-to-date contact information available. Their titles include the A&R Registry, the Film and Television Music Monthly, the Music Publisher Registry, and the Music Attorney Registry. All of their publications are available in print, PDF, CSV, or online subscription. Visit them now at musicregistry.com and receive a 10% discount by using coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. When you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured interview is with Sean Mulligan, who's the Vice President of Creative and Music Supervision at MNRK Music Group. They are a very, very interesting company. You will hear the history of MNRK, what they became, and the various divisions that they have, which make them a unique choice for artists. They're not only a label and a publisher, but they're also a distribution entity. They do music supervision, but they also do artist management, and they don't do all of those things for every person that they're involved with, which makes them a very, very kind of unique operation.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're almost like a position music, where we talked to Tyler and the other guys at the company, that they run this hybrid kind of operation, which you're seeing more and more with companies happening now. And, I really liked what he talks about when looking for a songwriter or artist to sign, and also about the trusted sources. We're always talking about the trusted sources that they're using to get artists into their ecosystems.
Absolutely. And most people, this is what I think is going to really bring value to our listeners, is that most executives have trusted sources. And I think if you, as a up-and-coming musician or songwriter or producer, know what those trusted sources are, it really helps you. It really helps you.
I can't agree more. And with that, Insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation with Sean Mulligan.
Sean, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich. Great to be here.
Good to have you. Sean, I always like to start these interviews with a question to each of our guests. At what point in your life did you know that the music business was going to be your professional career path?
Maybe 3 years old, I think,
Wow.
Just posted up in front of the record player. My dad had a very extensive record collection that had a very diverse range of genres. He loved everything. So I was going through that, exploring music. It was like a library, and that's where I spent most of my time. Bit of an introvert, so being under the headphones in front of the hi-fi system, just listening to music was like a really strong connection early on. I couldn't say that I knew that was going to be a business, turn that into something in business, but I've always been involved in interest in music, and any chance I could get, be around music in some way. So then it was music lessons, then it was starting bands, playing in bands, mixing bands, like just as much music as I could get in front of as possible, trying to guess what like a next single might be, on an album that came out from an artist that I loved, and getting it right a lot of the time too. So I was pretty happy with that. So yeah, in my career, I didn't realize it was publishing. I did follow it into college where I went to music school, but for a moment there I was also interested in graphic design, and I got accepted at a prominent design school where Disney hired all their animators from up in Canada where I was born and raised, called Sheridan. Got accepted there and then realized, oh no, it's music that's my first love, and backed out of that and pursued music after that. And that's when I really got into the business. But I also sold pianos in high school at Yamaha and worked with them. They needed like a keyboard guy who knew all that stuff and the technology. So, it was always listening to music, playing music, selling instruments, just being around bands and everything. So all the incarnations.
Fantastic.
Interesting. Sean, you're VP of Creative and Music Supervision for Monarch Music Group. Can you speak about what you look for both creatively and non-creatively when looking to sign a songwriter or artist to a publishing deal at Monarch?
Yeah, we have a great team over there, Todd Roberts, Gary, as well Mandel out of the UK, that are really the eyes and ears on the publishing side of our business. I've been involved in publishing. That was my first foray into the industry, interning at EMI and then working with a really prominent indie up in Canada before moving down to LA about 17 years ago. I think we're looking for some form of stability. The artists and writers that we work with that really take their business seriously are a joy to work with. They get back to you with answers on time. They're looking out for their own interests. I think in our industry we will suffer a lot of lack of professionalism in exchange for creative value, but it just makes the job a little bit more difficult. So, and we've had our share of people that we've worked with that were challenging for a number of different reasons, but just incredible talent. So, you find the patience for it. But ideally, we do have a couple of bands that are just so good and really business-minded. So we're speaking the same language. That makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shorthand built into that. So that's more on sort of, how somebody might conduct themselves, from a business perspective. And on the creative sense, it's, what's exciting right now? What do we think is going to be big and that people are going to want to hear? So staying on top of a lot of those trends, is really important as well, obviously. And we have deals where we're staying in touch with people to see how their career is evolving, see how we can help. If we can get them to the next step, then maybe the time is right where we get engaged in and actually offer them a deal and start to work together in that partnership. So we're pretty cautious. We're also on the artist management side of things as well. So sometimes that plays a part. Do we manage this writer, this composer, who is also an artist in that sense too? So because our company incorporates so many different aspects and facets, it's publishing, it's distribution, records, it's artist management, it's music supervision or a sync department. There are very few, I think, companies that do all of that under one roof so cohesively. That's kind of our competitive advantage, I think, in a lot of ways, pulling it all together in those partnerships. So yeah, we like to work with stable people that are super talented, ideally, and then, the variables, will adjust themselves and we'll decide if it makes sense based on that.
Where are you finding talent today? Where are you finding your artists and writers as a company? I mean, is it through the traditional sources? Is it through trusted sources of your own that you built up over the years of being in the business? Is it through attorneys? Is it through labels? Where are you finding them?
Trusted sources, which includes a number of the other people categories that you mentioned as well, Ritch. And, I think that that hasn't changed much, I think, from the dawning of the industry. Someone will say, like, have you heard this? Check this out. But to know those people who have their ear to the ground and, a lot of our team being those people that have their ear to the ground, I think what's great as a music supervisor even that has a publishing arm is that, these guys like Todd and Gary are always sending us like, have you heard this? Like in our own team are sharing it with the rest of the team. Like, ooh, that would be good for records. We can get involved. Maybe the records doesn't make sense, or we want to manage this artist, or this is perfect for a film or TV show that my team is working on. We share quite a bit. So, I think the open doors to some really good A&R people that have got their ears to the ground. I'd say, some through some attorneys that are actively promoting, but if they're promoting it to us, they're probably promoting it to a lot of other people as well. So, I don't think anyone likes a lot of competitive, especially independent companies, that competition. We don't want to get into bidding wars where it just puts the price out and prices us out. Like, we have a temperament for what we might want to spend on something, and it's usually let's try it out and develop it in stages. We're not, the 500-pound gorilla record company that's going to come in and drop a couple $1 million on a whim like that,
Right.
And I think a lot of other independent companies similar. So we have to be pretty early to the game, and then convince that we're the right team for that group. If we are, if we're not, it doesn't make sense. Then that's no hard feelings, doesn't make sense. But if there's somebody that in a group that we think we could do a lot of work with, and benefit from that relationship, then we're going to do everything we can to engage them. And so I think that transparency is really important. There's a lot of artists out there that have done deals, and you can take a big payout, but it might not necessarily be the right team. So and I think that word has gotten out there more through social media and artists having more engagement directly with fans. There's lots of YouTube videos by artists talking about the horror stories of the industry of the past, perhaps. And so I think it's breeding a little bit better behavior out of everybody, with a more educated artist community coming up. They know what questions to ask. They found the pitfalls. A lot of the information has been shared out there.
It's keeping that checks and balances in place.
Yeah.
What makes Monarch a unique choice for artists and songwriters to sign with?
We're unique because of the holistic way that we've integrated a lot of the business together. As I was saying, we've got records, distribution, publishing, artist management, our sync department, music supervision in-house. So there's a lot of opportunities that come across our collective desks, and lots of points of engagement that might overlap, sort of an intersectionality of music disciplines, and that's wonderful. So for an artist that we would manage, there's if we don't put the record out, we can shop it and find someone else. Our head of Monarch, Chris Taylor, was Drake's former attorney, and Chris was known as the guy who could get record deals. And if he couldn't get them, he even started Last Gang Records because he was trying to get Metric a record deal back in the 90s and couldn't. He's like, well, I'll put it out myself then. Got a distro deal set up, and that turned into Last Gang Records as a label that was fairly successful and ran for a while. A lot of independent artists out of Canada. And, that sort of spirit of an indie, we'll try and get this done as big as possible, but if that's not going to work, then we'll do it ourselves. Having a lot of different opportunities and avenues within the company itself as a first go to then spring from. So same thing on our film projects. If we're music supervising a film, maybe we put out the soundtrack, and if we're not willing to come up with a certain advance or something, then we'll find somebody else who has, and we have done. So I think we are affording a lot of opportunities across a lot of different sectors of the industry that I think makes us, has a bit of a competitive advantage for us.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned music supervision, and you're involved a lot in music supervision. Are those in-house projects, or are they projects that you supervise outside of the Monarch system?
They're both. It's really interesting. E1 Music, E1 was born out of a music company,
right?
Acquiring Koch records and distribution, purchasing Death Row Records, purchasing dual tone records, and really evolving through acquisitions, and then turning into a television producer as well as a distributor, and then a film producer through acquiring Sierra Affinity and other film companies, and a lot of strategic partnerships as well that they still have to this day. And so we were the music division within that company that was growing all around us. And we saw a lot of opportunity to have those conversations with our colleagues on the film and TV side. So I came into the company with Chris Taylor, and what we did was really try to build as many bridges internally as possible. And I think music supervision was the glue that we were able to have those conversations on. To say to our film and TV people, we can help you with a lot of these music questions that you might have, or obstacles or speed bumps. We can solve those problems. We know all those people. We work with them in all these different capacities. And at the same time, maybe hire us to work on these projects with you. And we became their default music department as a result of that. And that really grew. But at the same time, we maintained our relationship with other producers that we had already worked with coming into the company. And then when they sold us as an independent now to Blackstone, we're back sort of out on our own, separate from the studio, but we have those great relationships with all the folks at E1 and Hasbro that we helped out all those years. And we still maintain our relationships with producers. So the short answer is it's really a hybrid. And we're meeting new producers like every film. We're introduced or referred to another production company, it seems, and it's just been kind of a family tree. It's sort of evolved and grown organically. You do a great job on something, word gets out, someone else, then can you do that for us? And that's how a lot of our relationships have sort of been fostered, is based on the work that we've done in a lot of those spaces already, and through referrals.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, now you touched on this a little bit, but Monarch also has a management division as well as all the other divisions you mentioned earlier. Are these clients also signed to the label and publishing divisions as well, or is it a case-by-case basis?
It's a case-by-case basis. Yeah, we've never, went for that 360 model where you have to deal with everything. And,
right.
And sometimes, we realize that it might not make sense. If it's a wonderful songwriter that's also an artist, but their artist career is a lot to manage, we might not have the bandwidth to sort of want to handle that. So it's very much an a la carte type of system. And we recognize and understand that sometimes it's not a fit to do it all under one
right.
roof. Yeah, and it also to have other partners that have other resources that they might want to contribute to the situation as well, I think is helpful. I think of that with licensing and having a couple of major labels on a song if you're a songwriter. Say you're that fourth songwriter that's unpublished. Well, now you've got like 3 majors going to bat on fees to negotiate it up with some professionals that do business across, the board. They might be able to help you get a higher fee if you're just going to, most favored nations.
Most favored nations, yeah, right, exactly.
MFN me on that. Thanks, guys.
Right,
you got this time. And I worked as a pitch person as well for Rocksteady Music, which is our company, also with Chris, which is sort of how we segued and brought that all under one roof with E1 to build out that side of the company. But I found that if we had a master recording with a major, it's like, great, they're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us.
Right.
And we're just going to say, yes, thank you very much. And that worked out really well.
Let me ask you a broader kind of publisher question today in the market. Do you think that publishers are playing a more significant role in the development of new recording artists than they were in the past? In the past, I think it was much more, or at least from my point of view, publishers didn't want to get involved in artists until they had a record deal. Do you see that shifting from your point of view?
It's interesting. Theoretically, it makes sense, right? If there's not a lot of money to collect, let's see where it goes. But I think the competitive nature is that if you wait too long, then you might miss the opportunity. Back in the late 90s, when I was working back in Canada for a music publisher, we were very assertive. I remember, one of my first jobs in the industry, helping to install an air conditioner unit in a band rehearsal space. And this band wasn't signed yet, but we loved their songs, so they were signed to the company. And we were doing, things like that, like getting them set up and covering the cost of rehearsal space and getting them, stylized and getting headshots and band shots together and paying for those demos and introducing them to producers to help hone and find their sound, and then landing them deals with majors. And we did that on several occasions. It's a long way around of going about it. So I really think it's based on the nature of, who's in charge at the publishing company. There are some execs that are a little bit more creative than others that might believe in a project and want to spend a little bit more in that sense. So I think there's always been those people out there, and my view might be a little bit colored by biased experience because I did work for somebody, a gentleman named Frank Davis, who was very much like that. So my experience in publishing was like, that's just something you do as a publisher. But yeah, maybe it's happening a little bit more often these days. Certainly the cost of recording quality tracks like at home and with the technology and everything is such, and with access to like the sync opportunities, and if you're a independent publisher but have a little bit of traction, maybe a little bit of money, you're probably going to be investing in some of that talent a little bit more than some of the other folks in independents. But I think everybody wants to be creative, and I think that there's that unless it's the investor types that are just wanting to buy a legacy catalog, but that's a completely different situation.
Different model.
So I think we all, are involved in music some way, want to, just like everyone really kind of wants to discover an artist. You want to be the first to it.
Right.
Panel that we just did, Ritch, you and I together, we had a director talking about being so excited about discovering a 21-year-old and putting her in the film, and it's her first film, and this is a great platform for the songs. So I think a lot of us share that sort of enthusiasm, and we'll be encouraged to do that where we can. So I see that quite a bit, even at the publisher level.
Hey, Insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured interview. Stay tuned because we've got so much more value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. Hey, Ritch, you're the founder, CEO, legend of Music Business Registry. Tell us what the Music Business Registry is all about.
Well, what it's about, Eric, is it's a company that is designed to provide the most accurate and up-to-date contact information for the music business. So if someone is looking to reach the A&R community, if someone is looking to reach music publishers, if someone needs to reach artist managers, if someone needs to reach music attorneys, if someone's looking to place their music into film and television and needs to reach all the music supervisors, that's the contact information that we provide. We've been doing it for 28 years. We're sort of the industry standard, if you will, for the music business and have been serving them since 1992. So that's what we do.
Amazing. So if I wanted to find out, let's say A&R people from Warner Brothers, let's say, I can just go in there and find that in the A&R registry?
Absolutely. You'll find all of the Warner Brothers in there. You'll find the Warner Brothers in LA, Warner Brothers in New York, Warner Brothers in Nashville, Warner Brothers in London, Warner Brothers, probably in Australia as well. So those are the main territories that we cover.
Amazing. And we're offering all of our insiders right now that are listening, if you visit musicregistry.com and use coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount off your first order. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. Anything else you want to say, Ritch?
Well, when you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
How does an artist or songwriter get on your radar at Monarch?
So many different ways. There's the word of mouth, of course, but a lot of people are just blasting out email. They get your email and they start reaching out. And if, we get quite a few emails a day, a lot of the people doing what I do in the industry, same kind of thing, several hundred a week. And it's a lot to have to parse through. So kind of dedicate a few hours, a couple times a week to be able to sift through it. I have found, though, that ever since even like the mid-90s, listening to unsolicited material hasn't really yielded the benefit that I've always, this many years later, hopeful to find. Oh, that one diamond in the rough. Like I was the guy that listened to that one song that everybody else just ignored, and it went into a bin or into a folder somewhere, never to be heard of again. Having other filters and other people in the industry to help you get your work done because of the amount of hours in a day really makes a big difference. And, somebody saying, listen to this is really making all this, somebody vouching for it really helps, I wouldn't discourage anyone from continuing to send their music to people. I would just say my advice would be to really make sure that it's engaging and that the imagery that might be surrounding an email or a blast is, gives you some sense of what the music might be like. So there's some continuity in what you expect. And I think really take care. I've had emails that are just text emails saying like, hey, I've got a bunch of new music, you should listen to this and a link. And that stuff I tend to ignore. I feel like, if you're not going to try, then why am I going to try? And I might be missing out on the next best thing, but experience has told me that it's probably not.
Right. Exactly.
A lot of experience listening to a lot of stuff. So I think the people that, this kind of harkens back, Eric, to a question you had with about, on the creative sense and a business sense, like who are you interested in? And I think that really shows when people are putting their foot forward and reaching out to you to say, here's my song, I would love you to listen, and everything surrounding that engagement, that first impression, should really help to sell that song and sell the artist. So I think the care is really needed. I've heard other supervisors say that as well, like make it look good and everything. It's like, it's important that it's true to the music, I think. So when you do click it, it makes sense. And I think that helps solidify what you're listening to. And if it's good, I think it just reinforces that, this might be somebody that has more of the same and somebody we might want to be engaged with, if not just license a song from, maybe it's somebody we want to publish. Looks like they've got their, business together. So some thought really needs to go into it. And, as I say, a lot of emails, that's the best way to step ahead in email. It's free, it's cheap, you can send emails all day long. But how to get them listened to or paid attention to, I think that's the key, is just that little extra care.
What films or books have you read or seen in your life that have been really inspirational to you growing up, professionally, that you could recommend to our listeners? Are there any?
Yeah, there's a book called, this is a little bit biased from my dad introducing me to running as a young child.
Okay.
So, this is more a bit of a life lesson, like running.
Yeah.
It's hard, it's winded, you have to develop a little bit of practice, and, growth comes from expanding your comfort zone. So this might be a little bit of suffering. If it's trying to run faster, you might breathe a little heavier for the first little bit. And anyway, there's a book called Eat and Run by Scott Jurek that's great. It's an easy read. It's just a guy on a journey doing ultra marathons who's like out there, but because I listen to music as a bit of a loner and that discovery, you're out there on a run for long periods of time. You get into that headspace where you really start to explore kind of the depths of your mind. And it's an interesting experience, but transcending the pain, realizing that like pain doesn't mean stop. Pain's just like, hey, time to start thinking about stopping now. I think some Navy SEALs have said, when you have that feeling where you feel like you can't go anymore, you still have like 60% in the tank, and they test that. So pushing beyond those boundaries, I think. For anyone who's frustrated with their experience, like supervision can be a frustrating experience. If you care about the job, you want to do great or do well at it. You want to be able to get your directors, showrunners, all the music that they want. You're hoping that the artist will agree to the licensing terms that you're working with if they're lower budget, and you're hoping and praying and then the clock's ticking at the end of the day as well, and you're speeding towards a deadline, and you're hoping that people get back to you. And even on this panel, Ritch, that we just did, talking about how hectic it is in chasing down a number of different writers and hoping they get back. Sabrina mentioned something about that. You're in a constant state of stress because there's very little you control. You're in the middle of everything and trying to get, everything to work on for both sides. And so I find that being able to live and thrive in that space is helpful. And I find that like Scott talks about the psychology of running and being in a painful state and, transcending that and realizing there's something beyond. And it's not, death. It's just a tolerance that you are able to handle a little bit more in a capacity. So I think, if anything, it just kind of really says, keep going, keep pushing, to get through. And I found that book was pretty inspiring. It's one that really stuck with me in a fundamental way that I can bring into my work life and life in general, but in a highly stressful environment, certainly that is music supervision.
Okay. What advice could you offer our listeners that are looking to pursue a career in music publishing?
Yeah, I started my career by interning with EMI, and back then it was the mid-'90s, so I was taking DAT tapes that writers had delivered and consolidating them, so we had all their music on one tape. And then being in that environment and around to understand when writers come in for visits, the whole team kind of rallies around, you say hi, make everybody feel at home, and just kind of learning the decorum in the industry and how these labels operate, and getting to know the different archetypes and characters that we engage with and deal with all the time. So anything you can do to get close to the industry as possible. There's a lot of people from at the conference today at the Music Expo from around the world, and it's difficult for them not having the exposure. I mean, if you're here in a place like Los Angeles or New York or other major music centers like Nashville, all the people are there, and you can engage with that community in a meaningful way. It's difficult to do that from a distance, but I think proximity is a very an important part of it, and you'll see people, so making the effort to come out, make those connections and those relationships is really important. And I think once you do that, you can then go back to a more remote area or be away from those folks and continue the conversation. But it's important, I think, to keep checking in. I think we see that with a lot of companies around the world, certainly for a market like the U.S. and trying to break into Hollywood, coming from from afar just to be here. And a lot of magic happens when you're up close and personal with these folks and mingling. And it's amazing. I've been in so many rooms where someone said, like, oh, you do that? Like, I know so-and-so. Like, really? And and a business relationship is born out just from a little commonality, and having something that you can kind of a shared experience. I think that's how we bond as human beings, which is natural. Yeah. So being where the music is, I think, is key. And then from that, reading as much about the industry as possible. There's so much information out there. There's no excuse not to get up to speed on who and where people are and what they're saying. Ritch, obviously, the directory is a huge help for people. I relied on that for years when I was getting to know even the names. But now you can look at someone's name at a company and go search them on LinkedIn and find out what they look like. When you go to a conference, you can approach them and you'll know who you're talking to. And it's much easier to be able to do your homework these days, I think, with people. I think preparedness, knowing who's doing what, and breaking in, you might not know exactly what part of the industry you want to break into as well. So I think try to talk to as many people across the different facets of the industry to see where you might fit, where your particular interests or skill sets might best be suited, where you might be most satisfied. I think people like to help. They like to share stories. So if you ask them, engaging questions about their day and work, you might get a better sense of that. So do your homework, be here, ask meaningful questions to people, find out where your path might be. And I think just even that basic sense of interest, I think, is captivating to some people. If anyone's taken the time, much like, we were talking about people sending emails, if you put some time and effort into it and it shows, I think people will generally want to support that.
Absolutely, yes. I totally agree with that. Because it shows a commitment. What advice do you have for people who are interested in pursuing the career of being a recording artist or being a professional songwriter as a career?
I don't think it's a choice, really. I think if you have a plan B, you'll probably take it because it's a much easier route for a lot of people. But I think it depends on. If you have a significant amount of talent and it's apparent and obvious, then I think you'll get further faster. If you have a lot to learn but a keen interest, I say keep at it. It might take you a little bit longer, but in the long run, it might pay off. So, and those are easy things to say because it's difficult to support oneself and also stay creative. And I think that's why publishers are so important in the equation, because if they're supporting talent, maybe doing an advance against future royalties, making that bet, allowing the songwriter to live off of that advance for a certain amount of time to focus on their songwriting creativity, then they can really develop and find out who they are. And then, of course, the creative services of putting them with the right people to help encourage. I know a lot of established songwriters, hit songwriters, that they don't really want to be out there training the next group of songwriters, but there is a kinship, kindred spirits, sort of camaraderie, 3 ways to say it, and people wanting to be helpful. But I think what's interesting is that writers that show up, that it helps if they're the artist too, if there's a vehicle for this song. Why am I writing with this person? I already know how to write songs. It's like, they've got some artist career or something. That's enticing, I think, for a songwriter. A lot of songwriters are also producers, so if they can be involved in that component of it as well. But oftentimes, a younger writer will come to the table with fresh ideas. So the established writers already know how to write. I know how to frame a song. This would require a pre-chorus or a channel, and this is the bridge that we're going to want. They understand all the structure and everything. And so there's a bit of tedium in that. And I think they get excited by younger writers coming in, like, what if we wrote a song about this that they'd never really thought of, or a subject matter, or a new trend out there that, the more established writers may be a little out of. Like, my kids are into all that stuff. Like, let's get into that a little bit more. Like, I know how to write this. And that happened, I think, with Taylor Swift in the early days. As a publisher, we were involved in her catalog, and she co-wrote a lot with Liz Rose. And, Liz was working at a music publishing company, and Taylor showed up as a young teenager with some songs. And this guy, Jody, out there, who ran the publishing company, asked Liz if she might spend a little bit of time with Taylor. She said, sure, she's got some great, cool songs there, some cool ideas. And she just kind of maybe song doctored a little bit, and they worked together and helped kind of hone those ideas. And they, it turned into a string of hit songs for Taylor. So just that little kind of nudge and help from someone who's a little bit more seasoned and experienced makes a big difference. And I saw that when we were partnering up a lot of our junior writers at the publishing companies that I've worked for with more established writers. They were coming in with fresh ideas. And that was exciting, I think, for the more established writers. So writing up is a phrase of always try to be in the room where everybody else is more experienced than you are, so that you can just soak up as much of their wisdom and experience as possible. It's all shortcuts. They'll tell you how to get a certain place.
Right.
And then if, mix that with like what your intuition is and put your signature on it. But like always talk to people and ask them questions about their expertise, especially if they've had a successful career. It's just, it's free. It's free education.
It's free education.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Sean, where can people get best connect with you at MNRK?
Well, my email address is a great one, provided it's an exciting email. Just kidding. Harkening to another question there. I mean, that really is the best way, I think, to reach out. A lot of people want to have meetings. I think they, part of our job is to stay connected with people, but really it's about hearing the music. Just even in the walk over when we were getting set up for the interview, there was a couple of people that, had followed us from the panel that were, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's fantastic that they're that assertive, and, they'll email me and I'll get back to them and that'll be great. But there's a whole room of people that didn't, and I'll probably never have any kind of engagement with them. So I think it takes a certain amount of tenacity to take that step. I think a polite email and getting to the point of this is who I am, what I do, and why you might be interested. And I get a lot of people reaching out for things that I'm not really involved in. Can you sign my band and stuff? It's like, I'm a music supervisor and I work within a construct. I'm not the best person for that. So I can already tell the person hasn't really done
their homework, yeah.
Yeah, and they might just be carpet bombing everybody to just reach out to try and hit as many people, and maybe one will stick. And then my colleagues also get it, and it's like, oh yeah, this person's not really kind of doing their homework in a lot of sense. So it just shows a lack of preparedness or caring,
Or education.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you so much for doing this. We really, really appreciate it immensely. Thank you.
Rich, you're so welcome. What a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thanks.
This was an interesting conversation, Eric. I have known Sean for quite a long time. He has been a music publisher for many, many years. He has an extensive background in the music business. What I thought was so interesting about MNRK Music Group as a company is the scope of what they offer. They offer not only, label services, but they're also offering distribution. They offer publishing. They offer music supervision. And interestingly enough, they also offer artist management, which is not something that you see a lot of companies getting into. They're very, very separate kinds of fields.
I think Position might be another company that offers that kind of same hybrid kind of thing.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And so it's a very 21st century kind of element that we're seeing more and more companies. These things were very, very segmented in the music industry of the past. So the value, I think, for our listeners is understanding that there are companies out there that can do this. That was what I thought was another very interesting aspect in our conversation with him.
Yeah, one of the other areas is something that we've talked about a lot, where how they find their talent and the trusted sources that they use to garner that talent. And in his case, it was the typical, attorneys, writers, and managers. I think he came up with the whole idea that that was the tried and true, trusted way of doing things, that he can rely on those people to get talent that's going to be viable for what they're doing at MNRK.
Absolutely. And the other aspect that I thought was so interesting is, what makes MNRK a unique choice, I think, for artists who are looking for a home or for a company to have a relationship with, is the fact that not only do they offer so many things, but they offer them segmented from each other. They don't always sign all the artists that they manage. They don't always manage all of the artists on the label. It's not a one size fits all.
Which is like a Position music, yeah.
Exactly. So that is something that I think really brings value. And, I hope that our listeners got a lot of value out of that, and we're able to see that, this might be a company that they want to check out.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show over at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes in our space. You can also find us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Insider Video Series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. This show would not be here if it weren't for our amazing team, which are the following: interview editors Sarah Nissenbaum and Alex Taylor. Show notes and transcriptions by Jani Chang, Nicole Capodoglo, Lilia Owens, and Sarah Nissenbaum. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast.